What if your gaming PC could work more like a console? No drivers to hunt down, no endless updates interrupting your gaming sessions, no desktop clutter, just turn it on, pick a game, and away we go. So what we're looking at today is this idea, SteamOS. This is Valve's Linux-based operating system designed for gaming, and while SteamOS is best known for its software powering the Steam Deck itself, there's something a lot of people don't realise. You can also install SteamOS, then the style of experience that SteamOS gives you on PC hardware. Join me in a moment to find out how and what the experience is like. Hello and welcome back to Nellie's Nerd Cave. Today we're diving into SteamOS. What is it? Why Valve made it? How it works? And what happens when you bring that console-like experience to your own gaming PC? This is my third video of the trials of finding the operating system I'm going to use for a build in my living room. I know many of you have done Steam machine builds, but I generally have to pay for everything myself as I have no sponsors at the moment. So things are a little bit slow when purchasing hardware, and I have to get things as and when I can afford the parts so that I'm able to then get going with those bits and pieces that allow me to build these computers. Now, with one component left to order, the next video should be that very build. Let's start with the basics. SteamOS is an operating system created by Valve, the company behind Steam, that we all know and love, the world's largest PC gaming platform. Unlike Windows, SteamOS is built on Linux. That might sound scary if you've never ever used Linux before, but Valve's goal was really simple. Make an operating system that disappears into the background, doesn't tell you about anything unless it really needs to. Something where the player doesn't even think about the operating system. They think about the games and what they are playing at that point in time. Now that's exactly what makes SteamOS different. It's not trying to become a general-purpose desktop operating system. It's trying to be a gaming console experience built on PC hardware. SteamOS became famous because of one device, the Steam Deck. Valve launched the Steam Deck as a handheld gaming PC that runs SteamOS straight out of the box. And this was a big moment because Valve wasn't just making another gaming handheld, they were proving that Linux could become a serious gaming platform. And the Steam Deck boots directly into the Steam interface, and you don't see a traditional desktop first. You get a clean, controller-friendly menu where you can browse your library, download games, adjust settings, and start playing. Basically, it feels like a wonderful console-like experience, but underneath, it's a full PC. One of SteamOS's biggest strengths is simplicity. Traditional gaming gives you incredible freedom, but sometimes that freedom comes with absolute complexity. You might have a Windows update, which takes time, driver updates that get in the way and crash your machine, background applications that are being used constantly, notifications that pop up whether you're playing games or not, launchers and AI, and 100 other things fighting for your attention. SteamOS takes a different approach. It gives you a dedicated gaming interface, you grab your controller, and you choose your game and go. This is especially powerful for living room PCs. Imagine building a gaming machine under your TV. That's what I'm doing. Instead of a keyboard and a mouse experience, you get something closer to an Xbox or a PlayStation using a nice controller. Under the hood, SteamOS has some really interesting technology. Because it's Linux-based, Valve can customize almost every single part of the experience, and one of the biggest pieces is Proton. Proton is Valve's compatibility layer that allows many Windows games to run on Linux, and this changed everything. Before Proton, Linux gaming was a niche hobby. full of headaches, etc. After Proton, suddenly thousands of PC games became playable without needing Windows. That's one of the reasons the Steam Deck works so well. The user doesn't need to understand Linux. They just install games and play. Now here's where things get interesting. SteamOS was designed primarily for Valve's own hardware, especially the Steam Deck. But PC gamers have always wanted this same experience on their own computers. And that raises the question, can I install SteamOS on my gaming PC? Now, the answer's a little bit fluffy, but sort of. Valve has made SteamOS available for certain devices and has talked about expanding support beyond Steam Deck hardware. However, the official SteamOS experience is still mainly focused around Valve-certified hardware, which seems to be derived around older AMD technologies, which I'll get back to later. For regular PCs, many enthusiasts use SteamOS-like alternatives that recreate the same console-style experience, just like I've covered in my previous videos. Examples include gaming-focused Linux distributions designed to bring Steam's interface to desktop PCs. So while SteamOS itself is closely tied to the Steam Deck today, the idea behind it can absolutely be used on other hardware. So, how do we install Steam on other hardware? Firstly, like in my previous videos, you get your trusty USB stick. You download the SteamOS recovery image from the Steam site. Then you use Rufus. You can't do what I've done in my previous videos, which is use Ventoy. You have to specifically use Rufus and literally burn it to the USB stick, or you tend to get a ton of errors and it doesn't install. Once you have this stick, bang it in the computer, boot it up, but you do need to make sure that Secure Boot is disabled in the BIOS, and then SteamOS should load to the familiar recovery desktop you see when you install Steam on the Steam Deck itself. Double-click the wipe device and install OS. This will then ask for a confirmation. Click the proceed button and then you wait. I advise that you do not do this step unless you know this is something that you want to do. This is going to destroy all data on your drive. If you're going to be experimenting with SteamOS, then use a separate drive for the install. You have kind of been warned. Once it is complete, it will restart the machine and load into SteamOS. You then have to wait, like you do on your Steam Deck when you first boot it up, for any updates to be installed, and once you get past this, you now have what looks like a Steam Deck, which is very familiar. You then log into your account, select your language and select your time zone, just like you would normally. I'm in the UK, so GMT is the one I select. I've got a wired network, so we'll go with that one. Then we wait for things to configure. But you'll notice it says your battery is low. Remember, you're using an actual PC. Unless you're using a laptop, you don't have a battery. So you can just ignore this. Now, to get to this particular point within the install, what I had to do is I had to use the install and make sure you had an RX 6650 XT, for example. That's the card I had on hand. This is an RDNA 3 graphics card. Now, at the time of filming this, unfortunately, the Steam operating system doesn't work at this point with any higher spec cards such as the RDNA 4 graphics at all. However, there are a few things that you can change in the settings to be able to make this function properly with something like an RX 9060 XT, which is what we have here. Once you've updated everything, you'll notice that the machine then restarts again. So to get SteamOS functioning with an RDNA 4 card, like this one, the RX 9060 XT, what you have to do is you then go into Steam settings and you go to the Steam channel. You select Steam Deck Beta, and then you need to restart the machine for this then to take effect. Once that's then happened, updates then need to be applied to add the relevant bits and pieces and drivers for the RDNA 4 cards. Once this is complete, you finally have the final restart that you need, and just to make sure that everything works and is functional, you then shut down that machine again, restart one more time, and install your RX 9060 XT. You switch back on the machine and cross your fingers and hope that this actually functions, and it does. You now have a fully functional RDNA 4 card, which will give you better graphics overall. So why would anybody want to do this? Why not just use Windows? Well, there are a few reasons. Number one, a dedicated gaming machine. If you're building a PC purely for gaming, you don't necessarily need a full desktop operating system. You need something that launches games. Number two, the living room experience. A SteamOS style PC can turn your computer into a console replacement. Perfect for couch gaming, perfect for family rooms, perfect for people who want PC performance without the PC hassle of all those things in the background. And number three, control. You decide what runs on your machine. You're not dealing with unnecessary background software and updates. You're creating a wonderful gaming appliance that is simple to use and easy. But before everyone throws Windows away, let's talk about the limitations. SteamOS is amazing, but it isn't magic. Some games still don't work perfectly on Linux, and the biggest problem is anti-cheat software. Certain competitive games rely on a Windows-only anti-cheat system, and those games probably won't run on the Steam Deck experience or the SteamOS itself. So Windows still has the advantage when it comes to supporting every single PC game. Also, if you use your PC for work or creative applications or specialised software, you may still need Windows to accomplish those particular tasks. So let's move on to the benchmarks of the SteamOS on a PC. Doom the Dark Ages has an average frame count of 102, where Counter-Strike 2 is restricted to 60 FPS, just like Bazite, and I'll come back to that in a second. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider is also restricted to 60 FPS, just like Bazite. So with this weird issue, what I did next, just to test if there was any difference, is I took off the frame limit within the Steam operating system, at which point I got much better results. Counter-Strike 2 went absolutely crazy and got a much higher frame rate of 400 plus FPS. The lowest I saw was about 150 FPS. The game ran smooth, it was amazing, and the benchmark that you can run this through was just so buttery smooth, it was unbelievable. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, again, went from 60 frames per second all the way up to 115, and the benchmark spit out an average of 125, so that's a vast improvement overall for these two particular games. The third game that I always test in my bank, because it's my favourite, was Doom the Dark Ages, and there was no difference in frame limits here, so no uplift at all. So with this, when putting it on a PC, the key here is to switch off frame limiting in the settings. That way you get as many frames as the graphics card can potentially generate. So what's the future of SteamOS? The biggest impact of SteamOS might not even be the operating system itself, but the idea behind it. For decades, PC gaming meant accepting complexity. Valve challenged that idea. They showed that a PC can feel like a console, and that changed the industry across the board. The Steam Deck proved people wanted a simple gaming experience that just worked, and now companies are exploring handheld PCs and console-style gaming computers. So, is SteamOS worth checking out? If you own a Steam Deck, like I do, absolutely. It's one of the reasons this device works so well. If you're building a dedicated gaming PC, the SteamOS idea is incredibly appealing. A simple, controller-friendly gaming machine that feels like a console, but has the power and flexibility of a PC. While official SteamOS support outside Valve hardware is still limited, the price of hardware is still at its highest, the future does look very interesting, because the line between PC and console gaming is getting thinner every year, and SteamOS is one of the biggest reasons why. So would you install SteamOS style setup on your gaming PC? Would you replace Windows completely or keep both? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into gaming technology, Linux and the future of gaming PCs, hit like, subscribe and join me next time for more adventures in my nerd cave. See ya!